but I would like to start the Board of Ed Committee of the Whole meeting. It is 6:03 and it is May 17th. And I believe, Ms. Joan, I have a quorum. Is that correct?
You do. You have 7.
Yes, you
Okay, thank you. And did we hear about whether Rita was back from California or not?
do. I haven't heard anything.
Okay, I just wanted to, because I know that she was visiting some family in California. All right, so the first thing on the agenda is the acceptance of the, or the approval of the Committee of the Whole minutes meetings of May 10th, 2021. Can I have someone first it?
First,
Can I have
I'll
someone?
take a mo-
Thank you, Lee. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of May 10th to 2020, please say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstentions? That has carried. And then the first, I believe, Susan, is with Ken at the end of the year. I don't have Ken on my screen. Is he here?
Yeah, he's here.
Where are you,
I
Ken?
see him.
I'm right
We
here.
have several staff
Oh,
members
Ken.
here.
Oh, Ken,
And-
sorry, you're like right in front of me. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. It's good to see you. All right.
So Ken has about 3 agenda items in a row to talk to us, since this COW really focuses on finance, facilities, and grants, and TransFinder reports. So thank you, Tom and Shannon, and the central office staff for being here to help us out.
Okay, so Susan, do we need to, yes, thank you very much. Do we need to sort of just move a couple of the agenda items just so that Ken can be in one glob, or do we go back and forth?
His are mostly together. I guess you could add the ESSER report, attachment 5, when you're
Okay.
going through. Ken, that should probably help. And then we can put the grant things together.
Okay. All right. So hopefully I'll remember to do that when we get to that part of the meeting. So, but Ken, if
Yes.
and Jay, I know that you are also here, and I know that a lot of this has come out of your committee, all of these discussions. So feel free to make sure that you add your comments at will to help lead the rest of us in this discussion. Thank you.
Okay, should I take it away?
Please do.
I'll share the exhibit, discuss it, and then I'll take it down so everyone can see each other.
Thank you.
So we'll start with attachment 2. There we go. And so this report is a discussion on what to do with unexpended funds at the end of this fiscal year. We have identified some costs. There are some magnet costs for the 3 brand new elementary magnet schools that we've identified costs that we essentially have to do this year in order to have the teachers ready for come September. And so these are the 3 schools: Charles Barnum, SB, which is going to be Mystic, and CC, which is going to be Thames. I guess I should change that. I'm sorry about that.
Actually, can I just make sure we are clear about this?
Please.
Charles Barnum is an existing school with an existing staff and students, and they are going to be magnetized to be a discovery kind of academy or a discovery magnet. Both the students from SB Butler and Claude, most of them will be going to Mystic River. And the students from Mary Morrison mostly will be going to Thames, but staff is split between the 2 schools. So the staff is coming together in different ways.
And so that's the costs we've identified that we need to pay for out of this year funds in order to get the staff prepared for the fall. For the high school, we had anticipated that perhaps there might be some additional graduation expenses due to the COVID restrictions. That was actually aren't going to happen. We're going to have the graduation right on the ground, so we're actually not anticipating an additional cost there. At central office, we are looking to get additional file cabinets that actually have locks. We have a number of student records that need to be secured. So we're looking to obtain some filing cabinets to put in the central office area in the gym. On the operations side, there are a number of items at Groton Middle School that we've identified that we need. There's a need for an outside equipment storage for both facilities for their equipment, as well as the athletic department. They have quite a bit of equipment that has to go up to all those fields every day. So it's been requested that we get some sort of storage for that that's closer to the fields. And then additionally, a floor scrubber at the Groton Middle School for the material that's on the floors up there at Groton Middle. And then the only two things was we had talked about OPEB, adding a little bit more to that fund as we have been behind in the past. And so we're proposing that we forward $135,000 to the OPEB fund to keep that in the positive, which as of the last report, we were positive, but to keep that adding to that fund so we have sufficient funds in that reserve. And then a number of employees were not able to take vacations over this past year due to restrictions and the work that the excess work that we had to do. So we are proposing to have some sort of a vacation payout of a certain amount. This number here is actually a worst case scenario. This was done, I think, in the middle of April. So I know there's been some vacation taken since then. So that number is actually going to be less than that. But at the time, that's what we had calculated it to be. And so the total of all of these items total up to $319,722. I'll stop sharing.
Ken, really quick, it's Liz. From the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting the other night, did you state that we already had some of the filing cabinets? I had that in my notes that the filing cabinets were there. Was I incorrect?
Currently, some of the student records are in filing cabinets that aren't locking.
Okay.
They don't have a locking mechanism, so we're looking for something that'll lock because these records should be secured.
Right. Okay. So I wrote that incorrectly. I'll have to fix my minutes.
I think we have some locking, but we just don't have enough for all the records that we have.
Okay. And we had asked about, did they also have to be fireproof? And I don't remember the answer to that.
I think the answer is yes, they should be fireproof because those records need to survive in case anything happens.
Okay.
But I will check on that again.
And
Thank
I've got
you.
a question. Sorry. Yeah, if I may, Ken, thanks. This is a very basic foundational question. I plead ignorance. I used to get asked this all the time. Somehow I had superior knowledge, which I don't. My knowledge is quite inferior on this. The impression outside the Board of Ed is, gosh, the Board of Ed always finds a way to spend absolutely the last dollar that was budgeted the last time around. And the question always arises out of ignorance, typically. What happens if the Board of Ed doesn't spend every penny that was budgeted the last time around? Is there a requirement that it spend up to the budget? Is there something bad that happens if you fall short? Do we have a statement out there, if you will, for public consumption that says, this is what happens. We budget X, we can't spend more than X. If we spend less than X, then this is what happens. It's either what exactly happens. So just for, for public edification, it would be nice to have like a pocket, just so you all know, because this is a question I hear that comes up perennially, even among elected officials outside the BOE. And I count myself sort of in that group because I, kind of just got here. It's my first end of year. What happens when we don't expend all the funds? So.
Can I just add something? One of the things that I had come to you about is it's really important for us to be good stewards of the town's money and the taxpayers' money. And one of the things that we've had some flexibility with is the health savings account and the OPEB account, which we really didn't know about until about 5 years ago. And it was really important to the town that we make sure that we're paying that off and making sure that that OPEB account, and we've done a really good job in the couple years that we've known about it. So I would say if there are funds available at the end of the year, that's kind of what we've been looking at to make sure that we are good stewards of that money and making sure that we have, contributed our part to that. Ken, did you have anything else you wanted to say about that?
The only thing I did want to say is that we do if you look at the end of year reports, we don't spend every last dollar. There is some funds that always go back and essentially gets returned back to the general fund. So we make these plans on what to do, but it's at the end of June we're making estimates of how much we anticipate bills to come in for. That things that are ordered on June 30, we don't get the bill until say into July. So there usually are funds that go back to the town, just so we're clear.
And also in my tenure, we have had monies that have gone back to the town, willingly have gone back to the town because it's not our money. It needs to go back to the taxpayers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's happened.
Kim, I don't know how to raise my hand here, so
I got you, Sam.
if I could. In the 7 years that I've been here, there have been 2 years when we've sent back to the town council monies that were left over in my budget in particular. So I know that twice that has happened in the last 7 years. It may have happened more than that, but at least 2 years I'm sure that we sent back money that was left over in my budget.
And I think what happens is the majority, as Susan has said many times, the majority of our budget is salaries. And so those tend to be rather regular. And so that base of expense, it does get spent on salaries every year. And it's just these costs that like we're talking about on this schedule that come up that, would it make sense to do this this year or not? And that's what the basis of the process is.
Yeah, I think what you hear sometimes is part of the general mythology that at some level doesn't go away. It's one of a number of items that people simply keep in mind, and they think this is so, and it's not necessarily so. So in fact, if we spend less than X, say X is the budget figure, we have discretion to either say, okay, well, we spent less, give the rest back, or don't fund as much, or what have you. But it is discretionary, and we decide to use it toward OPEB funding and things like that. Okay, but it is within our purview to decide whether or not to give it back, so to speak.
Right.
Well, in a sense, paying off the OPEB is giving it back because you want to make sure that those obligations are fulfilled. So, the town has their obligations to the health savings account and also to OPEB, and as do we. So I think it's important on both sides, the town and the school district, to make sure we're taking care of our obligations first.
Right. If I see a hot tub on here, I'm going to say something more. But
yeah, a hot tub may raise an eyebrow.
So can I get clarification, Jay and Ken, about this chart? Because this is actually, I think, to Dean's piece. Is that it looks like we're looking at finding $319. $319. Wouldn't that be lovely? The ending price so that we can buy all these things. Is that what is meant to this, or are we anticipating that we have the 319 722 that's going to be left, but that can't be true since we're only in we are in mid-May and our month is up. I kind of want clarification if you could kind of give that. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I think that Ken does a really wonderful job at estimating and projecting how we're doing throughout the year, you know, and every month he reviews kind of our spending up to date. And so it's been pretty consistent that we've hovered around 200, 250, now it's up to 300,000. So we pretty confidently can say that we can take care of these needs that are going to go into next year, which will also fulfill, you know, our magnet themes and, you know, materials, equipment that we needed, and also take care of those responsibilities that we need to take care of. But Ken, I'll go to you to say, is there anything you could help fill in with that information?
Yeah, I agree, Susan. We feel confident that those funds are available. And if they weren't available, then you know, Susan would relook at that schedule and determine, you know, what will we have to absorb into next year, or whatever we have to do to do that. But you know, yeah, I do feel relatively comfortable that those funds will be there at the end of the year, if that answers your question.
Kind of, Jay?
So I just want to point out that this projection represents less than 0.4% of the entire budget of the year. There's no way to come in exactly on target every year. We could have one placement in the next month that could dig into that significantly. And one of the reasons that we've been able to come in at zero budgets every year is that we prudently use the money that's been allocated to make sure that rather than just give it back this year and then go back for it again next year, for example, for this piece of equipment that we need for the middle school, there's a new type of flooring that doesn't exist at the other schools, I understand, and Sam can tell us a little more about that. However, so we need this new piece of equipment, but there are no wax floors. So maybe Sam can speak to the fact that overall, that the fact that it's no wax will actually save us money, even though we're going to have to pay up front for this new piece of equipment. And so it's tweaks like that.
Jay, Ken, and Susan, you've done exactly what I needed to have happen, which is we're not looking for this. This is what we're thinking is going to be what we're going to have left at the end of the year, and this is how we're going to spend it. Because I do believe that this is going to be needing to be something that we vote on when you get clear about that at the end of the last, I think the meeting in June. I think we're going to have to be able to vote on that in terms of how to spend that part of that money.
But let me make it clear that, in my opinion, if there's a significant variation in this number before the end of the year, as we've done in the past, it should go back to the town. We've done that many times. The town has either come to us with a particular crisis, or we felt that to be good stewards. But if we're making prudent investments this year that will lead to cost avoidance in future years, I'm all for that. If there's a significant difference before the end of the year, I, for one, of course, it's up to the rest of the board, would say it should go back to the town.
I don't disagree with you, but once again, this sheet in itself just doesn't, when you just look at it, does not come with explanation. And so I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that. This is sort of the ballpark that we think that we're going to do, that we're going to have, and this is how we're going to spend that money, provided that the board actually approves of that. That is the recommendation that has come from not only Ken, but also from the finance committee. And with a discussion of if there's anything less or more of that, we would be revising that to either bring back some to the town, or that we would not be able to get everything on the list. Do I now understand it? She can be taught, folks. Any further question about the unexpended funds? Okay, Ken.
Right. So I'll move to attachment number 3, which is alliance funding. Let's see. Pull it up. All right. So we did receive 300,000 from the state for Alliance District funding, and this is how we laid that one out. There is some data support that we have at central office, the amount of 60,000. There is an EL. I'm sorry, I probably should have written that out. Is an English language teacher?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, and there's a fair amount of management for this grant, and so there are some funds to offset our costs for grant management, and then there's some health insurance and payroll tax attached to the teacher, the health insurance for the teacher, and then payroll tax for the group. As well as software, some softwares that will help in what we're trying to accomplish with the Alliance District, and then some equipment IT equipment, pretty general, but we think it might be prudent to use that for Chromebooks, additional to the annual refresh that we do. These would be additional Chromebooks to give students either who are utilizing their own devices or spares or stuff like that for Chromebooks. And so the total for that is the 300,000, and that's the amount that we've received from the state. Yeah.
Any questions about Jay?
So is it fair to say that given the increased amount of distance learning we've done this past year, that's why we need more Chromebook funding than usual? I mean, I assume we're seeing more of them coming back that have either reached end of life or maybe have been used more than usual.
So Jay, the quick, easy answer to that is COVID made us do the Nestea plunge to take on one-to-one initiative for the whole district. So where we started with the high school and we were laying that foundation using Department of Defense education or supplementary funds, we then had to really take on the middle school next and all of our elementary. So it really, there were various grants and various state contributions with laptops and Chromebooks that really helped us and elevated us so that we could make sure that all of our students had access and equity around devices, hotspots, as you know. So this is in addition, like looking at what are the needs for cleaning that up and to make sure that all of our devices going forward are ready to go. So between the Department of Defense supplemental and this Alliance funds, this will help us to do that, achieve that goal, to make sure everything's in working order and top notch for our kids.
And a follow-up, if I may. I know when you first started as the assistant superintendent, you began a program of software audits to determine what are we actually using and are we paying license fees for software that really is no longer relevant. So I'm just curious, just in general, do we have any information about the line item in the Alliance as to what software this is funding?
So this is really funding some of the software we've taken on, but it's not the only software cost we have. And I'll let Tom Lonsdale, our student data manager / IT director interim is here. And he's actually overseeing this software audit with a host of our specialist teachers, so he can speak to that a little bit. And we can bring him back too to speak about it some more. So he can give you kind of the bird's eye view.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys hear me? I apologize if you hear crying in the background. My son is in timeout in the room next door, so I apologize for that. So as Susan said, I think from multiple angles, we are auditing our software, both our instructional software and also the kind of also day-to-day software we use in the district. So on the one end, we are looking kind of at the hard data about how many times teachers have used it and with how many students they've used each of the different software programs we've purchased this year. In addition to that, we hope to roll out in the next week or so a survey to all of our staff to get their impressions about the software that we've rolled out this year and to understand whether they find each of those software programs useful. We did take on a lot of new software programs this year. So it's important to understand what's sustainable going forward and what really kind of gave us a lot of value added for the money that we spent on them.
And to avoid duplication too.
Absolutely. And in addition, Jay, you know, we are continually auditing and continue to audit to make sure that the number of licenses we're purchasing are appropriate for the amount of usage. So that's currently something that we're reviewing right now and trying to get our projections down as locked down as possible for next year in terms of how many licenses we're going to need for each building and what kind of bank that we can build for extra licenses should we have more students move into the district over the summer. In terms of which software programs we used Alliance funding for, if you give me about 10, 15 minutes when I come back for TransFinder, I'll be happy to give you a list of those. I can look those up in just a few minutes. So I hope I answered your question, Jay, but if there's anything else, please let me know.
No, thank you very much.
Any other questions around the Alliance, how they are utilizing the grant? Cool. Hearing none, we're going to move on to, I think we're going to go down to the ESSER grant. Is that what we're going to do, Susan?
We also have the policy 1330 that I know Finance and Facilities been working on, the rate schedule.
Oh, okay.
So that's
Okay,
actually
I got
the
it.
next one on the list, and then we'll
Yeah.
jump down to ESSER.
Fine.
I can share that if you'd like here. Number 4, attachment number 4. So this is an update to this policy 13, not really to the policy, but to the rates that are charged under policy 1330. And so we've changed this this schedule a little bit so that the things in yellow that you see here have been updated or looked at. And you'll notice that there's a Fitch High and a Groton Middle and elementary schools for columns. And the first thing that we added was here under utility charges. We used to have something for air conditioning. Well, these schools, the middle school, the new elementary schools, the high school, they have a very sophisticated HVAC system, which is not just air conditioning in the summer, it's also heating in the winter. And so it was suggested that this charge be charged across both the heating and the air conditioning seasons, and that we charge it for the high school and the middle school and the new elementary schools, which are going to have this sophisticated HVAC system. In addition, it's been proposed that we have lights and scoreboards for the new middle school field. And so we've added in a line here for electricity use for the field, which we already had that at Fitch High, and we're just adding that in for Groton Middle as well. And then under rental charges, and this is only for the people that utilize the facilities that are for profit, but we added in a whole section here for the middle school because it's all new rooms and facilities. But please notice that under when it says fields lighted, I guess halfway down and a little bit further down when it says other athletic fields lighted, there's no charge associated here because we've been given instructions that we cannot charge a rental fee for the field if they are the beneficiaries of these lights, which are going to be put up using bonded funds. And so that's all.
We can charge for the electricity, but we can't charge for the lights in the field.
That's right.
Kind of complicated, but that's how it works, right?
That's right. And so that's really, so it's really just the same as the previous rate schedule. We just added in these sections here. Stop sharing. Okay.
So Jay, can you talk a little bit about the discussion that happened around this in your, or are there questions? I'm just.
Well, obviously the the driving force to get us to re-review this regulation was that the new, turf field we can't charge for. However, as Susan pointed out, we can charge for the utilities when the field is lighted. We also wanted to go over to update the fees for staffing. And also at one point we had a system where we were charging a certain amount for heat, a certain amount for air conditioning. And so Ken simplified it into just an HVAC charge. So as an update and simplification, keeping in mind that the bonded fields can't be charged for.
And Jade, is this something that you anticipate us bringing to our next regular Board of Ed meeting for a vote on?
Remind me, Ken, again, is this the policy per se, or is this the regulation?
It's the regulation. So
we
regulation
don't
does
have
not
to.
need to be voted on, but we do want the board to be very completely aware of
Right.
the change that was made.
Right.
But
So
we've
The
already
policy did
approved the
not
policy.
change.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Alrighty, I'm moving us along.
Do you want me to do the ESSER grant ones or?
Yeah, I would say so. Then we'll put the grant things together.
Okay. All right, I'll share attachment number 5. So hopefully the top section here looks familiar to you. This is directly out of our budget book. And these were the ESSER 1 funds, a total of $686,882. Just to remind you, these funds need to be utilized by the end of September of 2022. I think we've talked a couple of times about the different ways that these funds are going to be utilized. Quite a bit of personnel, substitute teachers, part-time custodians, some social work, and some teachers. And then we also paid for some salaries in the food service department, some supplies and cameras. And we're well on our way to spending that $686,882 because the majority of these personnel happened throughout the year here of 2021. The next section down is ESSER 2. So this was the one, I think it was around the beginning of the year that we received notification about. So the allocation we got for this was $3,045,330. And these funds are to be used by September 30 of 2023. Again, the majority of this is directed towards personnel. A majority of that is going towards tutor support to address learning loss. And so the way we looked at this was most of this would be spent within FY22 and 23, but we have hired some of the tutors that are going to help us. So we are starting to utilize some of the tutor costs. Again, social workers, teaching personnel, and custodial workers. Very similar to ESSER 1, but this is for FY22 and 23 mostly.
Can I also add the shout out to the tutors, because we've really been able to hire. Many of them are certified teachers, retired teachers, and I'm being requested now because of some of the professional development that we're working on for the summertime, which will only enhance teaching and learning for our kids. And a lot of the math specialists, literacy specialists have requested that their tutors go with them, and also classroom teachers, so that we're really including them for this professional learning so that they can be even more effective in those small group settings and one-to-one. So I'm very excited about that. And that really came from our teachers to me, that was an important thing, and I couldn't agree with them more. So just to let you know, sometimes people might think a tutor, isn't as qualified, but we want to make sure that they're highly qualified from the beginning, and that we continue to give them the professional development that we would give our teachers.
And
Didn't mean to
some
interrupt, but just
other-
had to say that.
And there's some other costs in here, non-personnel costs, some PPE, once again, additional desk shields and face masks. And so we're well stocked on those. There's some funds in here for software, again, similar to when we looked at the Alliance. A lot of these revolve around the remote learning, but we'll determine on how best to spend those funds as we go forward and see how this new process works out. School supplies, we found out last year that we needed to send some school supplies home with the students. So this was anticipation of getting in front of that. And then some additional professional development for the teachers to be sure that they have the support they need to do their job. So that's a total of $3,045,330. And then very bottom here with just one line, although it's a very big number, is the American Relief Plan. I think I spelled relief wrong. What's also called ESSER 3. These funds are to be used by September 30 of 2024. The total amount allocated to Groton for that is $6,568,245. And I'll let Susan, we have not yet determined how these will be spent, but I'll let Susan give us what we anticipate to do there.
So as you can see, if you do all the adding up, Groton was the recipient of over $10 million worth of CARES Act ESSER funds, which we were extremely grateful for, to be able to get through this pandemic and move forward, accelerate learning, and make sure our kids get everything they need, as we, exit out of this time period. So with the ESSER, because the ESSER 3 is such a large amount of money, a major portion of it has to be for social emotional learning, or at least over $1 million has to be carved out for social emotional learning, for accelerated learning, for anything that has direct relationship to students, and any kind of gaps that might have occurred due to the pandemic. So, and all the buckets have been very similar. So, it's good in preparing this because you're really thinking along those lines of staffing, PPE, computer software, computers, equipment, anything that would be necessary to kind of get us back better than we were before. So with the ARP ESSER, one of the things that came out through CABE and CAPS, the Connecticut Association of School Superintendents, was that they were offering free of charge a facilitator, an ESSER 3 facilitator. And I've been, Fran Rabinowitz, who is the president of that organization, has let me know that Dr. Betty Fieser, who is a superintendent of the year and I know very well, and is my mentor, has been assigned to Groton, so that we will be forming a committee. And on that committee, I want teachers, administrators, parents, board members to really look at what can be done with this money in order to really create a wonderful plan for this community in moving forward. So I don't have all the answers, but I know that the team will help me, and the facilitator will certainly help us. They've given us a lot of parameters through the state and guidance on how this has to lay out. So that, along with working with my colleagues in the Alliance districts and Learn and across the state, I know that we'll come up with a very solid plan like we have in the past related to this COVID-19 and this pandemic. So I feel pretty assured of that. And there's even things that can help us with HVAC systems. So it can be also operational kinds of things that would be related to COVID-19. But all three of these grants have got to be around COVID and the interruptions that have occurred, and what we have to do to make it better, healthier, safer environment for our students and teachers and educators. That was my short, long answer.
Any questions about the ESSER grants? I'll recognize Dean and then Jay.
We can't hear you.
Helpful. it would, if you unmuted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I was just thinking, okay, well, how much of this is going to go toward routine and how much to, extraordinary expenses? Susan, you've answered that by saying that it has to be COVID related.
Right.
And as with other things that I've seen that are like this, one of the things I would like to be careful of is, do we, especially with large amounts like this, something that covers a longer period of time than just say a quarter or a year, are we going to get ourselves into a position where we now have an obligation, an expenditure obligation that continues on beyond the funding? And then our problem becomes, well, we have this system, we have this program, and now we must look for other funding. If this is money comes in and money goes out and then we're done because we're satisfied we've met our COVID related expenses, that's one thing. But if this sets us up for new programs that will require new sources of funding, that's what I'd be on the lookout for.
And that's actually a topic we're going to be talking about in a minute, Dean, on grant sustainability, because with
Right.
all of our grants, in addition to the 10 million from the federal government related to COVID, we've also received close to 10 million between the MSAP grant and all the DODIAs. And so we really have a plan that we put into place on sustainability, where sometimes it's a matching fund with the operation, sometimes it's a gradual release account, so that the funds might be used up in the front of the grant, and then gradually we're able to release it and not have as much of whatever it is, whether it's staffing or most of our creative new programs, innovative programs have come through us through DODIA. So I don't anticipate a new program, but I do anticipate things that will assist our students with their teaching and learning, to accelerate learning so we can get them back in the saddle better than they used to be. So, and I'm very appreciative that this one goes all the way till the end of September 24. So with each of these ESSER funds, you see that they've given us extended time. So Alliance, it comes, it's got to be spent by the end of the year. These have given us more gradual time frames so that we can move them forward in a kind of systemic way.
And what's the interplay between, so we'll have, at least for the couple of years, expenses and funding for those expenses through the ESSER grants.
Right.
What is the interplay with the MBR? Do we now have a new floor for BOE?
No, I don't think it affects MBR at all.
Okay.
No. I mean, I think those are additional funds. All towns have received them in one way or another, and they're really for the purpose of COVID and making sure that we're taking care of any gaps that have occurred through the pandemic for students and their learning, and assist them with social emotional learning, anything related to.
Right. So if we find $1 million to spend using the ESSER grants, everything washes out. Our budget's not going to look like it's $1 million higher, and therefore the starting point for next year's budget is that higher level.
No,
Okay.
I was asked that at the RTM as well. And I said that, and the question about savings and, and coming in at a 0%, when you're coming in with contractual and benefit obligations at 3.1 and you're able to really prioritize and bring it to a 0 3 years in a row as we have, there are cost savings and cost avoidance built in. And so some of these grants have certainly taken care of us in this interim time for COVID, but we certainly are very cognizant of taking care and scrutinizing our budget so that we're able to, do MBR, sometimes a little higher, but we can't go lower.
Good questions, Jean. Thank you. Jay.
Susan, I know you have some exciting plans for the summer for student activities, camps, and that sort of thing. Are you going to be waiving the Apex fees for those students who need to make up credit or want to maybe even take courses for enrichment?
I'm glad
can
you
you-
asked that, Jay, because all of our summer learning opportunities will be free of charge and will provide transportation. So there will be no fees for summer learning.
Okay, including the Apex program? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about the ESSER grant? Or grants, excuse me? Hearing none, we're gonna move on to our next agenda item. And so I have elementary school lottery and transportation. Susan?
So we're going to start with, I guess that's Tom. I'm looking for him on the Hollywood Squares
I'm
to
up
talk
here.
a little bit. We've got also competitive grants, but let's do the transportation first. And lottery.
Do you guys want to talk about transportation or lottery first, Susan? Or it doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. So I'll start with transportation. I'm sure Susan has probably alluded a little bit of this to you guys, but just to give a little bit of background. So the team, which includes Susan and Sam and Phil and Lori and Ken and myself, have met several times with TransFinder. TransFinder is the parent company of Route Finder, which is the system that does all of our bus routing in the district. And we've met with them with the goal of looking for efficiencies going forward with our current busing, but also looking for opportunities to adjust our schedules and create more efficiencies going forward for the district. And through that work, kind of the initial findings that we found is that we are very optimistic, at least based on the initial data, that we'll be able to go to a 2-tiered system. So just to make sure that everybody understands what that is, we currently have a 3-tiered busing system where we have an elementary, a middle, and a high school run. What our initial findings are is that it would be possible to go down to a 2-tiered system, which would mean we'd have an elementary and then a combined middle school, high school run. So I want to emphasize that is preliminary, but the initial data is very promising. I actually have a follow-up meeting with TransFinder tomorrow to discuss this further, and we are having them do kind of a more thorough proof of concept to show that giving our current buses, this is going to be feasible for all of our students, and to make sure that both the length of the bus runs and our bus capacity is sufficient. But we do feel confident at this point that that's going to be a possibility for us for next year.
And I can just add to that what would happen is that the high school kids would get an extra half hour in the morning, which I think all high school kids would appreciate. And so the buses will pick up kids in their neighborhood, so there'll be siblings and neighbors, and bring them to First Fitch High School, drop off the high school students, and then just wrap around to the middle school and drop off the middle school students. And on the way home, pick up the high school students first and then pick up the middle school. We've seen it in multiple districts. Phil has had experience with that. I have had experience with it. Ted Kelleher, the principal of the high school, has had experience with it. And it's really been a positive for everybody. As a matter of fact, sometimes the high school kids, they're either not paying attention or they're paying attention, and they're making sure that other adults know if there's any mischievous behavior going on by middle schoolers. So it's really a very safe way to ride into school and get them there. And it also gives us a cushion in the middle, so we get a few minutes too to be able to move kids in from their magnet schools. We're going to have kids in elementary all across town going to different places. So we didn't want to add on buses or add on costs because of that, or because of the 2-tiered system. And we're finding out that at the first study that this is feasible and doable. And we're going to do a 2-part series with TransFinder. So they're first going to work out the high school, middle school, and they're going to also give professional development to our staff and work with them in these routings so that they'll be able to take it on in the future.
Andrea?
I wanted to ask Susan, did I hear that correctly? Did you say that the high school students would get an extra half hour? Is that what I heard?
Yes. Yep.
So does that mean we're changing the schedule?
They're changing.
Oh, no.
Oh. And what I
Um,
really meant was start time. And
Yeah,
actually
we would be
implications.
shifting the start and end times Susan's still frozen on my end at least. So we would be shifting the start and end times, but the length of day would remain the same for the students. That's the anticipation. And as Susan said, it would also give us a longer gap in between the bus runs currently, which provides us extra flexibility. We do anticipate that because of the literal distance that have to be traveled by the elementary buses, that some of those elementary buses will take longer to be able to pick up all the students and get them to their magnet schools. So we wanted to provide that cushion kind of in between that early and late run.
And we've just, has this gone through the union, or does that not apply? I would assume it did.
It doesn't need to, because it's still the same amount of time. And the district sets the school start times and end times. The contractual hours are the same.
I see. All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry I lost everybody.
We got the answer, not to worry.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Kim, I've got a question.
Absolutely, Dean.
Yeah. Am I on? Okay, I'm on. Good. So the school, the day, I'm following up on that. So the high school day is the same length, but if the kids are there a half hour earlier, who's responsible for minding them when they're there?
They're actually coming in a half hour later.
Oh,
So
the
they
high
get
school-
an extra snooze button. Which
Oh,
think
I
they'll
see.
appreciate.
Okay. I guess I wasn't following how I know
Yeah.
there's a lot of research that says that we should flip the schedules, that the high school
Mm-hmm.
kids should be the last ones to go to school.
Yes, we've heard that
But we
too.
have it the way we do because it's traditional and because frankly it functions on the back end, because
Mm-hmm.
we use the older kids to mind the younger kids when they get off the bus in those families. Okay.
That still can happen, Dean. All that can happen. It's just they're giving the students a little more time. Middle school's not going to change too much from what they have now, maybe 5 minutes. High school will gain a half hour, but the teachers all will also get that. So it's just like moving it a half hour difference, morning and afternoon.
What about after school activities, sports and whatnot?
No problem with that.
Okay.
So there's a lot of schools doing times like this, shifting it a little bit. So by the time the high school sports and clubs, they'll just shift in the same way.
Okay.
And we'll still run our afternoon buses for both middle school and high school. We usually do a couple tiers of afternoon buses too, so kids can stay after for different things and be able to have a ride home. So that
And
will
are we going to have 12-year-olds and say 17-year-olds on the same bus?
that could happen, but they might be siblings or neighbors, most
Will-
likely.
Will we have?
Typically the older ones sit in the back, so we'll also make sure that we have specialized seating arrangements. I don't know, Phil, if you want to speak to this, because I know you did this in your district, how you had to do it really and communicate very clearly to the parents on the safety measures that we take.
Yeah, it'll be all about communication, and we've discussed possibly having some seating arrangements set, and that's probably going to be something good to start. They seem to separate themselves, and we did notice, it wasn't the problem that a lot of parents thought it would be, or even some of the administrators thought it might be. As Susan spoke to before, the older kids sometimes end up policing the younger kids.
They become patrols.
Or they're on the bus, they're on the back, and other kids are on the front, and it didn't become a problem. And the bus company also mentioned, as part of their training for their staff, they would adjust their training as well for their drivers to handle that multiple ages at one time.
Jay.
I know that we invested in TransFinder a few years ago, and every year we're tweaking its actual capabilities. So this is something we invested in, and I guess we're now seeing the fruits of that investment. My question is, by more efficiently constructing these routes and pickup points and this sort of thing, are we actually looking at needing fewer buses? Or you're just doing all this with the same number? Or is it too early? Has the report really not been finalized?
It's early for that, but the efficiency was really something in our in our wheelhouse that we really were concerned about, because we kept being told that it would take more buses to do what we're hoping to do. And now they're saying, no, you should be able to do it with the same amount. And maybe if there is a bus savings in there in all of this, by contract, I think, Sam, you can speak to this. By contract, we've contracted for 41 or 43 buses, I believe. And we're at the end of the contract. I don't know if you want to speak to that. But then they'll be renewing the contract. So if we can do a savings, we certainly would love to do that.
Right. But I am concerned about the amount of time that the elementary students are going to be on the bus. So I really look forward to seeing these reports,
Right.
Because that, that's been an issue. And I want to make sure they're not on there for too long.
So that will be
So-
part of their study. They'll
Right.
make sure that happens in the best way possible for kids. And remember, we've reduced our schools. So where we used to have 7, now we will have 5.
Right.
And while they're magnetized, most of the magnet influx that we're going to see is between Mystic River and Thames River. But we do know that the kids who've been at Claude and SB Butler will be going mostly to Mystic River, and the students who were at Mary Morrison will mostly be going on that side of town to Thames. So I still think generally we have most of our kids in a larger neighborhood zone, but still in a neighborhood zone. And then the others that are, getting in the lottery for the magnets will also be transported.
Right. Well, this.
But this is only going to give us more information. I've been wanting to do this. We've talked about this.
Right.
Mike and I had talked about it, Sam and I, the part that I really appreciate is that it's going to give training for our folks so that they'll be able to then take this on in the future.
Right. Yeah, it's very good news. I look forward to the final report. Thank you.
Mhm. So lotteries next, Tom.
All right. So as many of you know, we did start our initial lottery rollout about a week ago on Monday with our initial release of seats. As of about 6 o'clock this evening, we had about 150 students in the district who had not only been offered a seat, but it had accepted a magnet seat, which is fantastic. So we are moving at a really brisk pace, I would say, after 1 week. But just to kind of give everybody an idea of how the process works, the team has decided, and I think it's the right decision, to take a really slow and steady approach here. The goal being that, we want to make sure that we're giving as many opportunities for students to have a magnet choice and to accept a seat, but also to make sure that we're not oversubscribing any of our buildings and being very mindful of what our enrollment projections are for next year. So we are releasing seats on a rolling basis. Thinking about an intra-district magnet, we have to wait until we know if a student accepts a seat in another school before we know if that seat's open for them at their current building. So in other words, if a student from NEA accepts a seat at Mystic River in 3rd grade, we have to wait till they accept it to know that that seat in 3rd grade is available for them on the back end. So we have been, really diligent about watching those numbers every single day and opening up seats as they become available. We do anticipate within the next week kind of opening up another portion of seats at our existing buildings. The vast majority of the initial seat offerings were at our two new buildings, Mystic and Thames. So I would say out of the 150, probably about 130 of those students who've accepted were at the 2 new buildings right now.
And they definitely had more capacity because, as you
Absolutely.
remember those numbers for them, they still had about 100 seats in each building, 75 to 100 available. So once we knew they were situated, then, from the other schools that sent them, we were able to then we'll be able to release more seats. And I think CK and NEA, especially in kindergarten, their seats are pretty full because they're both established magnet schools. So the children who've been there want to stay there. So they're not opening up a whole lot of seats in the upper grades. There might be a few seats for siblings, but we really have to base it on enrollment because we don't want those classrooms to be, over the board's recommendation for seating. So we have to do it really carefully so no school gets overloaded. So I'm pleased with Tom's work, Rebecca's work, really doing this with a fine tooth comb and doing it really carefully, because I think it's going to allow more opportunity for our students and families.
So Susan, how's it doing on our numbers? Because I know that there's a certain number threshold that we need to get for our new schools.
Well, I think the numbers are going to be just fine. I've investigated that with Joyce, and there was really nothing in writing or nothing that we could find that had that 604 attached to funding at all. So that was a real big relief. And I talked to the, the company, the architects, and they said that that number was really just a projection. It was never tied specifically to funding. So that was very good news. Just learned about that recently.
Cool. Cool. Any other questions about either transportation or the lottery? Jay?
I just have a quick question. Are we reserving a certain number of seats for any incoming military families that might arrive after?
Military transient families that might come in over the summer, we are doing that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just kind of looking. All right. Moving on.
So I
Yay.
have Shannon Weigel here, who's been very busy working on grants. And so I wanted her to come and really update and brief you, and so you could really see the good work that she's been doing. So, Shannon.
Thank you, Susan.
Shannon, amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you
Oh.
so much.
Well, nice to see everybody. So since January, I've worked on 3 pretty substantial grants and then a few smaller ones. This year, we submitted 2 applications to DODEA. One was actually kind of rolled over from last year. We weren't awarded it in the first pool last year, but they said that we could try again, more or less. And we had the opportunity to revise it. And, hopefully we have a good chance of getting it. So I think I talked a little bit about that at an earlier meeting, but that application was for $750,000 over 5 years. And if we're awarded, it would start in October. And it would be for a career pathways program at Fitch with a focus on health science. So that would involve hiring a couple new staff members and professional development, a little more focused on the CTE area at Fitch. The second DODEA grant, which we just submitted a couple weeks ago, this was actually real. I found it to be very personally interesting to work on because most of our grants have been on STEM or literacy, but this was one of the first large grants I've seen for world language. So if we are awarded this grant, we would expand our current world language program to the elementary schools and also bring American Sign Language to the middle school. And that too we'll hear about in September. And then the third pretty substantial grant I worked on was with another department, another sort of section in the Department of Defense called DoD STEM. And this was for, I'm trying to remember, sorry.
That was manufacturing pipeline. That was a huge, that we will have to really work with other people in the Learn district and in our neighboring district, because that's at the tune of $3 to $6 million over 5 years.
Yes. So unfortunately, and actually that also included a partnership with the naval, with the submarine base, specifically their marine, their medical research laboratory there. So unfortunately, we weren't awarded that grant. believe that the program is still sort of trying to figure out its priorities. It really didn't go to any school districts, but we have some contacts there, and they encouraged us to reapply for next year, and they've given us some tips. And we're working with them on kind of another initiative. So hope, which I don't know if Susan's spoken about at all, but it's called the National Math and Science Initiative. And it is its own Department of Defense funded program that provides free training, free professional development to advanced placement teachers for school districts that have a military connected community. So we are eligible to participate in that programming. I've been working with Susan and folks at Fitch to try to set that up so that we can take advantage of that.
And I'm particularly excited about that because through MYP and IB, we've been able to make sure that teachers are currently trained, and there's lots of different opportunities for whether it's Zooming or, doing remote learning. But this one really, our AP teachers haven't had that. There's been a few who've been newly trained, but many of the ones who have been teaching the AP courses, especially in, I guess, it's math, science, and literacy are the three big buckets. And we really are very excited about this, and I'm hoping to get this rolling for next year. It will also include supplies, fees for students,
Yes, it
and
covers
then
their
that
AP
training, and not only just to train them in the summertime, but for them to have a networking, a go-to group that they can at any time ask questions. So that to me is like just-in-time training all the time, which is incredible resource. So for, all of these courses, whether it's careers, international baccalaureate, and now AP, our teachers will get the best training possible. And that goes directly to our students in their teaching and learning. So, I am really thrilled about that.
Liz.
Do you have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I was wondering, is there grants out there to increase civic awareness and understanding? Because, it seems like it's just the social studies teacher and me coming out saying, there's a lot on literacy, a lot on numeracy, a lot on STEM, but we also need to encourage our advance our civic responsibility, our history, to understand, to keep our identity as an American public. And so I'm wondering, have you come across any grants that would help with that type of training?
Well, so DoD STEM, they had talked last year about, they did have a civics grant program. And when I first heard about it, I was really excited too. And I actually talked with Carmita Hodge about it. Unfortunately, they decided to just grant that to one national organization. But it does seem like it is a topic that's on their radar also. Mm-hmm. And even with this world language grant with DoDEA, Carmita was involved in the development of that too. And it's going to include some training in IB MYP for interdisciplinary units. So we're hoping to kind of work the social studies and humanities in there.
And I think it was more of a global citizenship that they were looking at. But one of the requirements is that we had applied to ROTC, probably also with that umbrella. And so the application has been submitted. We're waiting to see where that goes. And we will be bringing back any information that we have on that as well.
But I am hopeful that there will be more grants for that in the future. There's been such an emphasis on STEM, over the past 10 years, that there has been, just in the grants community, a lot more discussion about the humanities and civics. Mm-hmm. So, and then the one last thing I wanted to mention was that we submitted a very quick last minute grant to Congressman Courtney. Had a sort of special, he's calling it the Community Grants Program, but basically in the large spending bills that Biden has announced over the past couple weeks with infrastructure and transportation, there was some money set aside for communities. So we put in a request for, again, funding for the Career Pathways program, and that was one of the 10 that was selected from Congressman Courtney's region that he's going to bring to Congress, and hopefully we'll be awarded that grant also. That would be for $140,000, and that would include funds to pay for an architect to come and redesign some of the CTE rooms over at Fitch.
And that's something that has been brought to our attention through the NEASC report. So that was really very interesting to us to upgrade those rooms.
So just for clarification, CTE is, for those who might be listening to us?
Career and technical education.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Shannon today submitted the Perkins grant, which also is going to enhance our culinary arts program in some of the other CTE areas, Project Lead the Way. And those are more in material costs and things that they really need, rather than more personnel. I think is there a careers coordinator in there, or is that another grant I'm thinking about?
That was the other two, yeah.
Yeah. So, all of these, if you see that there's really a trend here that we're really trying to build up for our high school, well, middle school and high school, because all these grants have an elementary, middle school, and high school component when it comes to careers and pathways, which is very exciting. And I couldn't thank Shannon enough. She writes an impeccable grant. As a matter of fact, I don't know if Phil wants to say something, but he learned more about our district by reading our grants than anything. So did you want to say anything about that, Phil?
Well, just, I reach out to Shannon almost every time. I'm just so impressed with the work that she does. So, and it gave me, as somebody new, a lot of information about the district and the things that these grants are going to allow us to do are just going to enhance our curriculum, which is what we want to keep doing. We want to keep growing.
Right.
So when will it, I was trying to follow Shannon, and like amazing what you're doing to help enhance our district and to supplement the funds that we have to really offer this just wide spectrum of offerings for our students and for our teachers, professional development for our teachers. But when do you assume when would be what grant would we hear about first?
Yeah, so unfortunately, DODEA, even though, we submitted one in January and the other one a couple weeks ago, we won't hear from them until September. And if we are awarded those grants, those projects are supposed to start October 1st. But I know each year it gets later and later. It used to be July.
We used to hear in July.
Mm-hmm. But the last one we received was in September. Sometimes they give us a little hint in August, but yeah, and they're really pretty tight-lipped about it. They don't share anything earlier. And then the Courtney grant, since that's pretty new, I'm not sure. Again, that would start October 1st. It's for 1 year for $140,000 total. Ayanti, his assistant, seemed to imply we might know sooner. So hopefully over the summer, maybe.
And Shannon, the reason why I'm asking that is that by charter, after a certain amount of money that we get in grants, we have to kind of go to the town council for approval, and then they have to send it to the RTM. Though we were assured, I think, was it 2 years ago, Jay? I can't remember where we were assured that they would expedite as much as possible the process.
Expedite, yeah.
So that we could do it. But for Liz, I think that even in your time, we have not had to do that yet. And so I just wanted to let you know that we don't have to present, we're going for a grant. We just, once we receive a grant, we have to make sure that it goes through the town council and RTM.
We've done about 3 through Children First Groton and Groton Public Schools on early childhood. So we have been able to they were smaller grants, but we have gone through that process.
Yep.
So we know a little bit more about it than we did before.
Yes, we had a learning curve.
Yeah.
Jay,
I have to also say that Shannon does a wonderful job meeting with anybody that is involved or will be involved in the process. So I think we've learned a lot about that from our initial grants that were awarded. So for instance, with all the STEM and manufacturing, we will talk to the principals, we will talk to, other administrators, we will talk to teachers who are teaching these courses so that we get their ideas, because they're boots on the ground and they know what the needs are in order to enhance these things. We talk to partners. Shannon does a marvelous job reaching out to other people in the community or across the community that has expertise in all kinds of areas. So she's a real researcher and developer. And I think that the buy-in for these things is much better today than it was, even 7 years ago, because there have been so many people involved in the process. And because it is a heavy lift, it's a lot of work, these grants. And then, and the work doesn't stop once you receive the grant. The work begins when you receive, there's another level of beginning. So, but I think it is one of the things that has afforded Groton this, opportunity to enhance teaching and learning and curriculum and assessment that hasn't come from the operation budget. So when I talk about sustainability, I'm talking about having certain monies in the operation budget for curriculum development and professional learning. But these additional initiatives that require even more than that are coming from the grant, and they're for a certain time period, sometimes 3 to 5 years, so that can be accomplished. And then we have this train the trainer model. So whether they're literacy specialists, math specialists, coordinators, that can continue that journey, and teachers can teach their own, newcomers. So let's say Beth Horler is a kindergarten teacher and we get a new kindergarten teacher in her school. We have 3 kindergarten teachers already there that can absolutely train that new person at the same level that they were trained or better than the teacher's college or the math. So I really feel like we have this sustainability built in the way that we have so carefully trained our teachers and give them input, and they create the curriculum. And so they really understand it probably the best of all. And to have those supports in the school, so just in time training for anybody who's new or anybody who has questions is already built in. So the grant comes and it goes away. There's this gradual release part to the positions, and then we continue that journey with one another, and we train each other. So, it's a powerful tool, and it can be done, and it can be sustained. And we know that through the grants that we've already had. So I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of our school community for doing what they've done.
thank you, Susan. Jay, did you have a question?
I just wanted to say thank you for Shannon. I know that her first grant, she was successful, and she's just done so much for this district. When people worry that how do you sustain this district on 0% increases every year? Are you diminishing the district by not asking for more money from the town council? Shannon is one of the secret weapons that allows us to actually improve the district at 0%. And so we owe her a lot for her little part-time job. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that, Jay. Very eloquent. Yep.
Any questions before we go into sustainability? I know, Susan, you've actually touched on it a little bit.
I really did. That's what I really wanted to say.
Okay.
Was that we plan the grant for the 5 years so that you do have a gradual release with if you added staff, and that the staff that we have in place, whether they're the teachers, the coordinators, the specialists, all continue the journey of the professional learning that needs to happen. And the materials have been purchased, and they continue, and except for maybe some minor curriculum supply things that would be in an operating budget, the grant really creates this thing and helps the change to occur, and then we keep it going.
So actually, we plan for 5 years plus, right?
Yeah, we really do.
Any further questions or comments about that? Awesome. All right, the next agenda item, I am not doing an Andrea Ackerman meeting, clearly, is the review of the referral list. Jay, have you guys done the out of district tuition stuff in your committee?
Yes, actually, we've had 2 meetings about that. Ken has brought forward a new proposed tuition rate schedule that makes us more competitive with other districts. But I don't know, when we can bring it to the full board. We had some other discussion about additional discounts, maybe for military or people who are relatives of taxpayers in town, but they live out of town. So, I really would like to bring that to the full board because before you know it,
Right.
be a new school year.
And Jay, I had a conversation in my head that clearly I did not give to Susan, which was I wanted to have that because it was a finance and facility to have that tuition rate. So Liz, because I know
Send it out in board notes.
We could. I still feel like it needs to have a larger conversation.
Right.
What did you say to me, Kim? I'm sorry.
No, that you and I had a conversation about having the tuition rate conversation from out of district people, and I just sort of thought we were going to, in my mind, and clearly Susan is not a mind reader. She's pretty good, but she doesn't read my mind.
No, I thought I should have had that on there. I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah, so I do want that. I do want that. So I think our next committee of the whole meeting will be in June, because even our next board, Susan and I are working pretty hard at making that our next meeting, which is going to be next week, is going to be the year-end celebration of our teachers, that we're not going to have, hopefully not a lot of like the business part of our Board of Ed meeting, and just have the celebration of the teachers and other people who have helped out in the school district. So that will push it to June. And I have no problem flip-flopping our committee of the whole so that our finance and facilities, we can get the tuition
First. Yeah.
so that we can then have a vote on that. Because I think Jay, you're very correct. We need to get that. We need to have that discussion.
You might even want facilities to take a look at the chart again the first week of June, so that when we bring it to you the second week, Monday in June, we'll have talked about it a little more. Jay, are you thinking that would be helpful?
Yes, especially with the suggestions that came up at the last meeting.
Yeah. We really tried to look at our per pupil cost, and Ken did a really clever way of looking at 85% of that, which made it really in line with the St. Bernard's tuition, the NFA tuition, so it would be really competitive. So that's where we started. He really crafted a nice, chart to look at. And I think we can look at that again with facilities, and then we can bring it to the COW. It's a good idea.
But Susan, if you would like to send a preview out in
In the board
if you can
notes.
start thinking about it, that would be fantastic.
Okay. You might have other ideas too. The board members might have some other good ideas.
Any other review of the referral list? Hearing none, are there any other future topics that we want to get moving on?
Yes, I would like to find out what's going on with our the athletic director. I've been actually trying to get informations about that, I do not, I guess I just don't understand. We actually hired someone. That person is in our brochure. But are we looking for another director of athletics?
So
No.
we have to go through, this position has switched over, Lee, from a teaching position to an administrative decision. So Kim had suggested that we bring our negotiations team together from the board to look at both a job description and a salary. And we also have to include the AGSA in that. So,
Well,
and
I'm
it
just
will be
questioning,
posted.
is he still here?
He is, and he might, and he certainly probably will go for the job, but in all fairness, because it shifted from a teaching position to an administrator position and it has a new job description and it's full-time for both middle school and high school, it does need to be posted.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think we knew, when Mike, when we met him, we knew that he was not going to be teaching.
Well,
We
he
actually
actually did have a teaching assignment. He
Yeah.
was, oversaw the
don't remember.
Apex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Andrea,
Yes.
in the past, you have been willing to sort of put together like sort of an evaluation group.
Yes.
I really think it's time. Actually, it's probably late, but at least we're coming to the party. To have a small group of board members to kind of come together to look at the evaluation process, especially now we have actually got goals from Susan and stuff. So I am wondering, are you willing to sort of lead that charge again?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I almost, it was something I wanted to talk with you today, but we had other things to talk about.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Oh, sorry, I read your mind. Susan, you can do it. Is there anyone who would like to join with Andrea looking at the evaluation process for the superintendent specifically? Actually, you know what? I am wondering, can we move the scope for not only the superintendent evaluation, but also do the board self-eval? And that could be that the scope of this committee, Andrea, really kind of looks at what does CABE offer for a self-eval, and does that make sense for the board to at least begin? Because we're supposed to do that, I think, in July, if my memory serves me correctly. It would be nice. We haven't done that in a little bit.
We're having a retreat. Is that something we might want to talk about at a retreat?
I think that's probably a good idea.
Oh, I hate it when people think. Yes, that's a great idea.
I like that idea. And I did speak with Bob Rader, as he kind of was my welcome wagon to CABE. And so he, I was talking to him a little bit about the document and how helpful it was, that CABE CAPS document. So.
Okay.
Good.
So if anyone is interested to work on this with Andrea, just send me a note and I will give it to Andrea. Okay. Any other future topics?
Okay, then. Well, before I move to adjourn, I just wanted to say, Kim, that sometimes brevity precludes richness, and your meetings have a richness that brevity does not allow. I motion to adjourn. I see a second in Liz. So, any discussion?
All
Well,
those
then,
all those in favor of adjourning the meeting, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed. The meeting is over. Thank you, guys. It was good to see everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Say good night, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.